This episode of Film Riot is brought to you by Domain.com.
Today on Film Riot, fig rigs and other camera stabilizing goodness. Welcome to Film Riot, the show that takes the mystery out of the effects and techniques going to some of your favorite Hollywood films. I'm your host, Ryan Conley, and happy Turkey Day to all. It's not currently Gobble Day for us. By the time we upload it, it will be though. So happy Eat Yourself into Unconsciousness Day.
Thanksgiving Day.
But before we stuff our faces with an unhealthy amount of poultry and side dishes, let's read an email. Hey Ryan, I was looking at possibly getting the Manfrotto fig rig. Is it worth the money? I actually have a fig rig, which I use now and again, and I have a cheaper version, so I figured we could bust out both and see how they compare. Let's do it. So first, for those of you wondering what in the tiny squirrel nuts is a fig rig, because it sounds like something more to do with Christmas than filmmaking, but it isn't. It's this steering wheel looking mother lover. I always feel more like I'm driving a big rig than shooting when I use this thing. It doesn't look like much, I'll give you that, seems kind of silly, but it is actually a pretty cool piece of gear. By getting your hands away from the camera like I'm always talking about, you can take a lot of the shake out.
I've been trying to read, but I just can't seem to do it.
Now, I'm not talking about getting rid of the handheld look. We all know I'm a big fan of handheld work, even intense handheld like in the Bourne films, but there's such a thing as ugly handheld, which is what you get with these light cameras when we hold them out in front of ourselves like this. And how shaky our hands are leads to all sorts of uncontrolled ugliness, and I can demonstrate this by showing you footage using the fig rig and without. Hit us with some footage. So you can see there's a lot more sloppy shake when we're just straight handheld, and we get more jitter as well. But that's not the only use for the fig rig. The fig rig is great for running around and getting action shots. Also, being able to hold it from any angle comes in handy on crazy shoots as well. It's actually best when it comes to action sports type filming like skate videos. Or maybe you could jump on a bike and hold it off to the side because, well, you can. Though I wouldn't suggest it, odds are you end up with a broken camera, but it's cool footage. I think this is a good piece of gear. Yes, it definitely is, and for certain things, it's a great piece of gear, but I do think it is insanely overpriced. So is it worth its insanely overpriced tag of almost $300? For 90% of you, I will say definitely not. In fact, 95% of you, I would say no. I mean, it's great, don't get me wrong, but I think this should go for a max of like $100. And given how simple the design is, you could easily do your own DIY version out of PVC, which I was going to do for this episode, but then I found that Indie Mogul already did the exact thing that I would have done, which you can find right here. They did a great job at coming up with a design that would do the job perfectly, and only for 30 bucks. So if you're going on a pro shoot, then consider getting the fig rig. Otherwise, I would say just do this build. I think it'll do the job just as well. So there you go. That is what a fig rig is, why it is useful, and where you can get one or build one. Now a quick break from the fine people who make this show possible, and I'm going to show you an extremely cheap and versatile camera rig. Domain.com is the place to go if you're looking to get yourself a domain name or web hosting, whatever it is you're looking to do on the interwebs, promoting yourself, making your own little digital business card to promote your video and filmmaking, photography, whatever it is that you do. Domain.com is the best place to go. They get your hosting up with no hassle. They got that domain discovery system we're already talking about, and you get 15% off just by using that coupon code FilmRiot. So go to domain.com, get 15% off since you're doing the web thing anyway. You help us, we help you. It's a marriage of wondernessful.
Logo.
So we talked about a super expensive piece of gear for stabilization. Now I wanted to show you something that won't break the bank, which is this bad boy, which I think the official name for it is Spider Steady. but it's been called a ton of different names online, so I'm not 100% sure what it's actually pretty confusing and odd, but for today's show, I'm just gonna call it the Spider Steady. The great thing about this piece of gear is the fact that it is basically a camera rig Swiss Army knife, meaning it is made to configure into a ton of different types of rigs. Like for instance, I can unfold it and configure it to be a shoulder mount like so, which of course you would want to add some weight in the back to help balance it out, but once done, it's actually pretty good for the price, which I haven't mentioned the price, by the way. $55 on Amazon.com. Yes, you heard me, $55. Another one of my favorite configurations is to emulate the action cam or man cam that Shane Hurlbut is always talking about, which looks like this, and this does basically the same thing the Fig rig would do, except this is over $200 cheaper. So now you can run around, have the camera out in front of you, and get all sorts of super sexy money-making shots. But those are just the two configurations that I use most. There are a ton of different setups that you can do with this, including using it to get steady low shots like so. Then if you want to add accessories like a monitor, just attach a magic arm to one of the screw points, which you have in several areas of the rig. And now this is definitely meant for lighter cams like DSLRs, but I have used the Red Epic and some heavy lenses on it, and it still worked pretty well. Some configurations would not work at all, but the action cam type was perfect. Which just brings me to the downside of this rig, which of course there is one. I mean, this is a $55 rig, and although extremely impressive for the price, it does feel cheap in a few ways. For instance, the way that the elbow points lock in. They are very convenient that you can untwist and tighten back these knobs to quickly change positions, but they don't hold well when you put too much weight onto the rig, or in some positions, they pretty much don't hold no matter what, like this one. But again, for the most part, and the main configurations I use, it's not an issue. I can also see how some of the screws may easily get stripped or worn down a little bit over time, but really for the price tag, I'm nitpicking. Honestly, this is a very impressive rig for what you can get for freaking $55. But now I'm wondering, how does this stack up to our $277 Fig rig? So let's find out. There's not much of a difference. I mean, I wouldn't attempt the bike shot with this rig, but other than that, they're pretty much interchangeable. So much so that I don't even think I would have bought the Fig rig if I would have used this one first. But again, the Fig rig is a great piece of gear, and if you're doing crazy stuff and need a really solid rig that you can count on, this is it. But otherwise, the Spider Steady, or whatever the frig its name is really, really great for the price, and kind of a godsend for the low-budget filmmaker. You can find it here, again, and for only friggin' 55 bucks. Okay, time for me to go stuff my face with a ton of turkey, mashed potatoes, corn, stuffing, while completely ignoring the cranberries. Then I'll ninja over to the couch, pass out for about 4 hours, and then play Black Ops for at least 2 hours. Yeah, sounds wonderful. So happy Thanksgiving, and I'll see you guys next week when I eat these magical dumplings to keep my youth, but then once I find out what's in them, ruined for life.